Today, we're going to be talking about all the drawings that I've been doing since high school. I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the drawings that I did in high school and some of the drawings that got me into college. And I'm going to show you some of the drawings that I did in college, and I'm going to show you some of the drawings that I did when I left college. Just to kind of show you how much my drawing has changed from since when I started doing this back when I was a wee old lad back in the heyday to currently to where I'm at now. Night and day. You couldn't tell me that was the same person. It looks like two completely different people who did all the drawings. And a quick little backstory for those who don't know, I went to art school in 2008 with the idea and the dream of becoming an artist, maybe an illustrator, maybe a kids book illustrator, something to do with my artwork. I realized really, really fast that I did not have the skill set that my classmates had. I mean, they were great people. I love hanging out with them. I love being with them. Great memories. But I knew that when it came up to compete, they would always have me beat when it comes to illustrations. And I know I'm not supposed to judge myself against other illustrators and other artists, but if this is a career that I have to compete against them, I'm going to lose every time. Like that's how I saw it back in college. So I changed my major to become a graphic designer, and that was my backup plan, my fallback. And I had to make my backup plan my main plan. So when I left college in 2012, I kind of stopped drawing full time or stopped drawing on a consistent basis because I was hungry for that design work. And I'm still am hungry for that design work. I still do a lot of designs. I'm a freelance graphic designer. So I just didn't draw for about 8 years consistently. And in those 8 years, my drawing ability and my art style didn't really change. They didn't really progress. And it kind of just stagnated. And I feel really bad that I did that. And I should have drawn more in those 8 years. And it wasn't until 2020 that I picked up drawing again. And for the last 5 years, I've been drawing way more, and especially on a more consistent basis. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and get into it. Right off the bat, we have this. This right here is my design portfolio slash illustration portfolio. As you can see, right off the bat, it says graphic designer, illustrator. Even back in the heyday, I was still seeing myself as a graphic designer. But this little pamphlet, or brochure, you want to call it, was my portfolio that got me into college. On this cover, we're going to see the little pencil sketch drawing that I did. And back in my high school years, I'm going to tell you how I did this. I would actually just draw on a random piece of paper. Didn't matter what it was or what was in the back of it. Then I would take a crappy Sharpie marker, go ahead and outline it, my pencil drawing, then erase my line, because you know you got to erase that the pencil line. Then I would scan it in, and it became a paint by numbers style of painting. Basically, I learned what the paint bucket tool was in Photoshop, and I would just click and fill. That's why you have like this weird coloring on this character on the cover. And then it's actually supposed to be me being erased by a pencil. Oh, look, he can design and he can draw. Oh, look at the quirkiness he is. He must be kind of funny. That was like the whole getup and the whole gimmick of me doing it like that. And I even thought I was so clever that I put the whitening on the back of the guy's head and make it seem like he was being erased. I really shouldn't have put this on my cover. It's not a strong piece, but that's the level of work that I was cranking out in high school. And I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. I thought it was the bee's knees. I was like, yo, people have been jumping at me when they see this portfolio. It was not the case. That was not the case at all. So I'm not going to show you every page in this little portfolio piece because it would just take way too much. And majority of it is design heavy because I already kind of had the idea that I should be a graphic designer as a fallback. But right out the gate, here are some more illustrations that I did. We have this Ben Franklin drawing that I did. And this Ben Franklin drawing, of course, I went ahead and drew it, got that Sharpie like I talked about, quickly outlined it. Then I discovered pastels, and I was like, yo, I'm going to pastel this and it's going to look nice. You tell me. I really don't think that's as good as it should be, but that's, I think, senior year in high school at that level of work. Then I went ahead and I was like, I'm going to show how cool I am. I'm going to digitize it and recreate it in Photoshop. And that's what this one was here. I recreated it in Photoshop. No, no, that shouldn't have been in my portfolio. But that's the level I was cranking out. And then right next to that, I went ahead and drew a animal cracker box. Yeah, that's an animal cracker box. Did not realize that I could actually draw on the die and then fold it. For whatever reason, I must have been big brain thinking it. Got to draw each panel out. Then I got to cut each panel out. Then I got to glue each panel to my box. I didn't have to do that. I learned this the hard way on how not to do an animal cracker box. Then I was like, yo, remember those pastels I learned about? I'm going to go ahead and make an ad for this animal cracker box that I think is cool. Is that cool? Yeah, that's, like I said, that's that high school level of, artwork that I was cranking out. And on top of the high school level of design, look at that. 50% off. That's it. 50% off. And at the very bottom, you see that those lines, those are just me implying on where copy would go. No one's going to go down the bottom of the page to read it. I really have no idea what I was trying to show here, but yeah, that's my illustration and my design put together at high school level. So in high school, I got to watch Supersize Me, the fun documentary about how fast food's bad for you, particularly how bad McDonald's is. Well, we watched that, and then I was given the task on designing a 2-page spread for this. And with that, I was like, I can draw something. I drew the fat guy with the burger coming out of his butt. Did it in high school. Thought it was funny as hell. Then I watched the movie, and I was like, yo, these two go together. And I wasn't even thinking about the movie when I drew that. I just thought it would be funny to see a burger coming out of guy's backside. So then I used this. I do my, pencil, crappy Sharpie combo, scan it in, paint by numbers, because that's how we do things nowadays in high school. Then I went ahead and made it in InDesign a 2-page spread. At this point, I didn't know what a gutter was, nor did I know what a 2-page spread was. This is all during my junior year in high school, so I can give myself a little leeway on what I did not know as a junior. But I did have the opportunity to make it better before I put it in that book. I didn't make it better, and I didn't take that opportunity because I thought it was perfecto when I did it, But you can see I didn't understand what a gutter was, and if you don't know what a gutter is, it's where the book folds. Okay, we call that the gutter, and I have text right down the gutter. His top of his head is right there in the gutter. This should be really hard to read. Okay, the title is in the middle of the page. Even the leading in the Lauren Lipson copy there that I got, that's really hard to read. I really don't understand if anyone understood what I was trying to, what the message was. The only thing I could read on that is eat too much, no doubt you're bust out. That's high school writing right there, my friends. Prime example. But for whatever reason, it got me in art college. So, but yeah, supersized me, and then I drew the burger come out the guy's butt. Thought it was funny. Then I was asked to put it in a project, or I decided to put it in a project. All right, now we have some decent drawings, right? Right? Some decent drawings. So in high school, I had a pretty good knack at just looking at something and just redrawing that. And you can kind of see that nowadays when I draw all those Pokemon. I can look at something and just follow that with my eye and redraw it. I kind of understood how to do that in high school. And as you can see, I drew Hercules, I drew Tinkerbell, I drew Nightcrawler, and I drew Spawn. And I'm sure I drew a lot more other IPs. I just don't have that many of them laying around. Like I said, a lot of these types of drawings that I would do, I'd give them away. So if I drew Tinkerbell, I probably did it as a tattoo, or probably did it as for someone that, take it away. I did a lot of praying hands and the cross drawings when I was in high school, and those all went away to become tattoos. And I did those gangster letters, graffiti letters, and people would go and take that, get tattooed. I really don't know if they got tattooed or not, but that's what they paid me for when I was in high school. And when I got paid in high school to do that kind of work, it was either like a few bucks, a couple of smokes, or I'll get lunch for free. It would get me a drink, stuff, something like that. It wasn't like I was making millions. I was just trading what I know just to make a buck or two. But yeah, those are just some illustrations that I was working on, and then I did a couple of self portraits. I think that kind of still looks like me, right? Look at those. You tell me. I don't know. And then some still life, and then of course, every artist has this. The drawing that they worked on in detention. For whatever reason, I thought this was a good drawing, and so good that I laminated it. And because I laminated it, I couldn't scan it. So I take a picture of it and put it in my booklet that I was going to go show at art college. And when they asked me, why did you do this? What's the meaning behind it? What I told them, I was in detention. I had nothing to do. So I drew this. I was learning 2 points perspective, and I was just drawing this in detention. That was my summary of that project. And for whatever reason, they just said, okay. They were fine with it. What they heard was, you know, 2 points perspective. I understand it. I'm not proficient in it. Hence is why I was working at it in detention. So that's the kind of like conversations I was having when I was shopping around looking for a college. Now, granted, I went to a lot of colleges to see where I wanted to go. I went to AI, did not like them. They didn't really look at my portfolio. They just breezed through it and said, sign at the dotted line, you're in. I said, you didn't critique me. I don't like this. I didn't go to AI. I went to this small art college called Husson School of Art. They're no longer around. Made by artists for artists. That's what the original intent was. And they told me what I needed to work on. They sat down and looked at every piece, and we talked about every piece and wanted to know my thought behind it. And I remember when we got to this piece, and I said, I did this in detention. They were okay with it. They just were surprised that I knew 2 point perspective. And lastly, the last thing I want to show you guys in this book is this little cartoon. As you can see, that's supposed to be me in the top corner right there, okay? And then the group of people at the bottom, they're all my homies from high school. I thought it was so cool that I can draw me and my homies and put it in my book. And I thought about it being a cartoon someday or doing something more with it. But you can see the skill level in that. And you can match that same skill level with my writing and creativity. There really wasn't much there to grab onto. So I really don't draw these characters anymore. If you guys want to see me redraw them, let me know. Throw it in the comments below, and I'll go ahead and make a couple of streams where I redraw a handful of these and give you some more backstory on these characters and who they are, really. But yeah, I just threw this in my portfolio. All right, the next set of drawings that I have to share with y'all are actually split up between these three sketchbooks. This first one's mainly high school into college. This one's like a blend of high school and college. And then this last one's mostly college and a little bit after college too. There's way too many pages and way too many drawings to go through because this video would never end. It would be easily an hour, if not more, if I were to sit down and talk to you about every piece in here. But I'm going to pull out a handful of them and we'll talk about those. As you can see on this first one, I don't have that many pages in it anymore, mainly because, like I said, I gave a lot of my work away. So this is just evidence that like a lot of my earlier work is somewhere in the wild or at the landfill. I have no idea where some of it's at. But this one right here is actually from a comic book. I don't know if I still have it, but if I'm not mistaken, it's actually supposed to be Flash and the Green Lantern. I don't remember what comic book it was from or what the panel was going on, but I believe they were talking in that one panel. But this just goes to show that I would look at something and I would just draw it. And that's what I did. I just looked at the line work and I was like, I can copy that. It's just a straight line, it's another straight line, and bam, I got a comic book art that I just redrew from just looking at it. So there was some skill level there of just studying the what I was looking at and then just redrawing it. I kind of had that skill, but this was probably one of the better drawings in my high school years, I would like to say. You tell me in the comments below. Now we have this awkward looking illustration. If you look closely, you can see my pencil work underneath that pen drawing. That's actually pen and not ball and not Sharpie. It's a pen that had Indian ink. One of those Indian ink markers, more or less, is what I used to ink this. I'm still following that same technique that I did in high school. This one right here, I know was from college. I believe it was my freshman year. I started leaning more towards this bubbly look. I do that with a lot of my characters with this bubbly eye, the bubbly ears. I just thought it was easier to draw and was easier to like hide your inexperience with it. That's kind of how I looked at it. And I would just focus on these real rounded heads when I was in college. And then so much so that the next drawing I got lined up is a buck-tooth snake. I've never seen a buck-tooth snake. I don't know if they exist, but that's what this drawing is. Like I said, once again, it's just a simple line drawing with a pencil. Then I went back over it with a marker that had Indian ink. I just switched it up from just using a plain crappy Sharpie to an Indian ink. And the reason I know it's Indian ink is because it hasn't bled out and it hasn't started changing color. And I can also tell by the line work too that it's Indian ink, not Sharpie. Indian ink, I only touch that in college. Anything prior to that would be just crappy Sharpie. But yeah, these two drawings were really from there. But I didn't finish this, and that's what most of this sketchbook is unfinished sketches from college. There are really not much there to look at, so we're going to move on to the next sketchbook. So the first drawing we have in this sketchbook is actually not too bad, maybe. This is someone drinking coffee, but they're dripping away. Fun fact, but whenever I start doing drips was because I was trying to hide what I didn't know how to draw. Kind of how in the Dark Ages and the Renaissance when they would paint drapery over the feet because they didn't know how to draw feet. Well, that's my drapery, was just drips. When I didn't know how to draw the rest of the anatomy, I would just drip it out. You'll see that in a lot of my earlier work from 2020 and 21, where I just added drips everywhere because I needed to cover up the fact that I don't know how to draw that anatomy part. That was my simple little cover up. On this particular page, we have a cat and we have, it looks like a liquor bottle in the bottom, and then we got my tag. But you see how this page is set up and kind of messy? That's how a lot of my pages in here, in this particular sketchbook, is set up. I mainly use this book more as just taking notes and throwing down ideas. So you'll see a lot of unfinished work in this sketchbook. And another thing about this particular cat drawing is that it has a box behind it. For whatever reason, I thought it was a really cool idea to put boxes behind my drawings and my cartoons to give them a little bit like of spunk or give them a little bit of like flair. I always have a knack for whenever stuff breaks the boundary box. I love that. You'll see that in a lot of my drawings that I try to put a box around something and then break it. So that little trait kind of stuck with me still, where I get to box everything in and then find where I could break that boundary box. As I continue through this book, I keep finding more and more pages that are like this, just random sketches put together. In this particular page, in the bottom corner right here, I actually ended up using that drawing for a project. in college. I don't remember what that project was for, but I just remember I scanned that in and blew it up. And of course, did the paint by number. And then I used my Wigum tablet to color in the color too in spots. If I find that piece, I'll post it in here. I'll post it in the comments below. But that drawing right there, I actually made it to finish. Everything else is just exercise and just me just throwing down ideas. On this particular page, we have a bunch of character sketches that I did. I was really big into simple shapes and making them into characters. Like I would do a square head and punch a hole in his head as like thinking outside the box. And I did like this giant loop, like almost like a ring, as like an airhead, because like there ain't nothing in his head. Those two characters really never got to see life after college. I more or less just stayed in my college sketchbooks. And then the character on the right, which is me practicing my line work with my pen. As you can see, I'm leaning heavily on my pen that's Indian ink. I really enjoyed doing pen and ink drawings in college. And that's kind of where I would just live with a lot of my drawings in the next handful of years, whether it was a ballpoint pen or my Indian ink pen, my markers. I just like the black and white drawings and how much depth you can get out of it, like how much shadowing. And I just like that you can do a lot with this one aspect, like with one media. But yeah, that's just more of me just practicing like cross hatching and shadowing with a simple Indian ink marker. This particular drawing is an old lady and her two sons, and there's an old house. I thought it'd be kind of neat to do a cartoon of this, but it never fizzled to be anything. It just stayed on this page as a concept art of maybe it was 3 characters. And you can start seeing that my illustration is starting to change. I'm starting to get way more cartoony. I'm rounding out my edges, and I'm starting to figure out like how I want my art to look or what kind of illustrator I want to be. Already at this point in my career, I think this might have been my freshman year still, or might have been my sophomore year, but I had already made that decision that I'm going to be a designer. At this point, I was in school long enough to realize that I couldn't compete with the illustrators. And this is the level I was doing at in college. This particular page is pretty cool. Nothing on here is finished, but there's a really neat idea that I had on here that I never gone back to. Maybe I'll come back to it later for one of the streams, but that is supposed to be a cigarette that's being burnt on his butt because like the cigarette butt is like his head and it's bending backwards and kind of burning his butt. I kind of wanted to show a cigarette like in this kind of aspect, like bend it like a circle, like around, and then having it in pain because it's burning its butt. Just something I thought of. I never really finished this piece, and I think this is where it only lives here. I don't think I ever recreated it anywhere else, but I do remember doing this. I remember this being a pretty cool idea that I wanted to carry out. But let me know in the comments below if you want to see me redraw this in my style now, and I'll do it for one of the streams. The last drawing we have in this sketchbook is a self-portrait. It's a cartoon version of myself. As you can see, I got a hole in my head just to show that I'm creative and I'm a free thinker. But this self-portrait is a lot different from the self-portraits you guys saw in my high school years. Now, this is only a few years apart, maybe 2 years apart. I might be a sophomore at this time. And you can see the skill level has changed. When I was in college, I took 7 classes for 5 days. So I basically had a 9 to 5 for 4 years and 7 classes for 5 days. That means 2 of my days I had to double up. And the other 3 days I had class that lasted the whole day. But it really taught me how to time manage myself and how to keep track of my projects and how to keep track on stay on top of everything. But every single day for 4 years, 5 days straight, even 6 and 7, because I was actually drawing at home, I drew from the sunrise to sunset, like all the time. You get where I'm coming from. The consistency of drawing every day really levels up your drawing. Like if I didn't keep drawing after high school, I would still be drawing like I did in high school. All right. This next sketchbook I got is actually one of my first sketchbooks I made. When I was in college, I learned that I could make sketchbooks and on my own, and it would be a lot more affordable than it is to go buy a sketchbook. I would go pick up my own paper and then go down to Kinko's and have them bind me blank sheets of paper. And depending on who was working that day, I may or may not have to pay full price or pay anything at all. It was a lot cheaper to make your own sketchbooks than it is to ever go buy them. This first drawing here, though, it is Sitting Bull. Sitting Bull was a Native American um, chief, I think. Yeah, I don't know much more about that. I don't know much more than about Sitting Bull, except that he was Native American and he was from America. But I had to draw him in college for a project, and I wish I knew what the project was about, and I wish I could tell you more about the project itself. I can't. I can't remember. I don't even have any documentation from college except for my sketches. And I have this guy in my sketchbook. There is another Native American person that I drew, and I don't know where that one's at either. I think I drew like a handful of Native American people, and they're gone with the wind too. But this right here just shows that I could kind of understood how to draw portraits. I could do it if I really concentrated. I really don't like drawing portraits, nor do I like drawing anything from the real world, like still life or realistic artwork. I mean, it looks nice when people could do it, but I personally don't like doing that. I mean, it's amazing that people do it, but it's just not my cup of tea. I just don't have that attention to detail or that patience to sit there and draw that for God knows how long you'd be drawing that same image for. But I can kind of do it. It just uses every brain cell in my head to actually focus to draw people. But yeah, that's what that was. It was just a portrait drawing, and it was all done in pencil. It was all H2 all the way through. So, all right, right now we have is the blob. It's not Clayface because it's not as cool. It's just the blob. This is a quick pencil sketch, and I took my Indian ink marker and went ahead and outlined it and kind of inked it up real fast. Did it go much further than this? No, no, it stayed. I didn't do much more. It lives in my sketchbook. Y'all are the first to see it since I put it in my sketchbook. But you can see my drawing and my cartoon style is showing through. I'm starting to understand where I want my style to look like and where I want it to go. So I kind of had this whole cartoony, bubbly going on, and I'm starting to refine it, as you can see. This drawing right here is just a self portrait of me when I was in college, getting ready to go fishing. I put the hair on the chin because that's what I had in college, and I had these crazy sideburns. I don't know why I had sideburns and the little soul patch on your chin. I looked kind of like a fool back then. So I hope I look better now. But yeah, it's just a little quick self portrait of me wanting to go fishing. And like I said, I really wanted to be a cartoonist and I really wanted to be a children's book illustrator. So you can kind of see me pushing my style that way more and more. And you can kind of see the leap from what I've been doing now to what I've done before. You can kind of see how I ended up to where I'm at now. There's some graffiti I used to do. I have a sketchbook that's somewhere in the house. I don't know where the hell it's at, but it's just covered in graffiti from back to front, top to bottom. I just basically bombed the shit out of it with all my tags. If I find it, I'll post it and talk to you guys about that too. But yeah, this is some of the graffiti I used to do. On this particular page, it's just a lot of animal drawings or just me studying goats and raccoons and there's other animals. I believe I had a wildlife uh, drawing class I had to go take. So that's probably where some of this is from. Like I said, these are just me practicing. They're not my finished animal drawings that I would have submitted. Nothing in these sketchbooks is actually finished work. It's a lot of it's just ideas and concepts. Then the last drawing I want to show you guys in this book is just like a mashup of a handful of cartoons I used to always draw. That's basically my characters that I made up in college. I don't really draw any of those characters anymore. Like my little robot's up there. He had a spray can head. I thought that was kind of cool, but like I said, I haven't really drawn any of those since I've left college. I believe that's the weed monster in there too. If I ever find that drawing, I'll show you guys the weed monster. And let me know below if there's anything here you guys want me to redraw, anything that you saw so far. They're like, hey, I want to see you redraw that on the stream. Just go ahead and let me know, and I'll go ahead and make content for that. All right. But yeah, that's the last drawing for this sketchbook. Here's another drawing that I did. It's a little bit more on the darker side. Like I said before, if I don't know the anatomy, I'm going to apply drips. And that's kind of what I did with this. But I kind of saw this being more in shadow, and the light would just hit like the forehead and like the nose and maybe like the hand. But I never really finished this drawing. I just kind of left it in my sketchbook. Once again, this is when I'm out of college already. But yeah, like I said, this is a little bit more darker than the other ones you saw. All right, real quick, I got this sketchbook right here, which you can see the drawing already. But on this particular drawing, it's just a dark color pencil drawing in this sketchbook. But in this particular book, is actually my workbook. I have nothing in here about projects from when I was working at my day jobs. I have logo concepts, package designs, but just is showing you guys whenever I had time, I just did a quick drawing, and on the backside you can see my notes for my projects. So literally, whenever I could squeeze in a drawing, I did squeeze in a drawing. All right. On this particular drawing, you can just see that it's a ballpoint pen. It's actually fading. There's not much of it. There was a lot. It was actually a lot darker when I did it. But it's from a sketchbook that when I was working at a day job, that they let me make my own sketchbooks there. Used the materials, made my own sketchbook, and these are the kind of drawings that I was cranking out. These mainly were used for note taking. So I have a bunch of them that have a bunch of projects and kind of sensitive material that I can't really show, but this is one of the pages that I could show off is this particular page. Let me know your thoughts on this particular drawing. Like I said, a lot of my artwork when I was working those office jobs are very dark like this. And a lot of my work nowadays is still very dark, but I really lean heavily on the ballpoint pen because that's all I had in my hand. But yeah, that's what this one's from. It's from the corporate jobs, and I was just drawing pretty dark stuff, and it's just a bunch of snakes just kind of chewing this person alive. So yeah, that's ballpoint pen. All right. So my last sketchbook that I have to show you guys is this bright orange one. There's a black one of this somewhere, and it has a lot more drawings in it too. If I find it, maybe I'll make a video just on that particular sketchbook. But everything after this sketchbook, you guys have typically saw already. If you guys watched my last video on my daily doodle challenge, where I walked through all the drawings that I did for that one sketchbook, you'll see that like that skill level is about the same and on par with what's in this book. So not much has really shifted from this to 2020 when I started doing the daily doodle challenge. And if you guys want to see some of those, follow me on Instagram at NoahForArt and scroll down to as far back as you can go, and you'll see some of my earlier posts about my daily doodle challenge. So I'm gonna start showing you guys drawings from this book, and this is the last one I got to show you guys. All right, the first one I want to show you guys is probably my favorite one. It is this one right here. I remember when I did this, and the reason I remember doing it because I found a green pen at the office. I never saw a green pen, and I used it for the character on the left. Then I took it home and I found green markers and I just built up the layer. A second character on the one on the right, I did that while I was at work on my lunch, and I just drew that freehand. Um, doesn't really depict anything. It's just two heads that I drew. And this particular job, I was working a second, third shift production job. So I worked kind of late into the night. I didn't get off until like 11 or 12 at night. So I had a lot of time. I don't say I had a lot of time, but I had some time on my hands to draw while I was doing pre-press work or waiting for the printers to get back to me. And at that time, this is where a lot of my drawings got really, really dark at nighttime when I was drawing. Um, there's a lot of them somewhere. I wish I could pull them up for you guys, but I know when I left that particular job, my cubicle was covered with my own dark drawings. And my last day, everyone in the office came by and took a drawing. So I hope they still have them. I don't know what happened to them, but I just know that my last day, I was handing out drawings with my tag on them because people loved them so much at the office that they would just come to see my cubicle in the morning just to see what I was drawing the night before. The office was cool with it. Everyone was cool with me drawing. They didn't have a problem with it. So I was able to decorate my cubicle with my own drawings. But like I said, it was just on random pieces of paper. It was on sticky notes. So I looked like a hoarder with all my drawings tattered all over the walls in my cubicle at that time. This particular drawing is just two colors of a ballpoint pen, a blue and a red, and then a pencil. I think I might have had a black ballpoint pen in there too. But it's just a big fat guy who's just running into drips with a technical arm. And I put the technical arm there because I didn't know how to draw the arm of anatomy. And I put the drips there because I didn't know how to draw the anatomy. But he's got a big nose because he's a know it all. These are one of the characters that you guys kind of would see me draw over and over and over. Are these like big nose characters. And the reason I draw them is just because they're like the know it alls in our community. They have a really big nose. People, they act like they know it all, and they have little eyes because they have a poor sight. They don't want to see whether or not they're right or wrong. They just go by what they know. So that's kind of like the basis behind that character and why I draw it the way I draw it like that. I know you guys didn't ask for it, but I just figured I'd tell you if you guys see me draw that same character with a giant nose and like little eyes. It's just to show that they don't see far. They don't have good vision because they don't need to see you if they know it all because they got a big nose. But yeah, that's that drawing right there. All right, we have another big nose character, but this one's the party pooper. He's got a little party hat on, or a little cowboy hat slash party hat, and he's taking a poop. That's my party pooper. I made a sticker out of this a couple years ago. I didn't do much with it, but I just thought it was a funny little character. And you can see my style is starting to change a little bit more from when I was in college to what I'm doing now. But yeah, that's the little party pooper. I was a straight up pencil drawing too. Nothing crazy. The last drawing I want to show you guys is this one. It's a big nose character, and I remember I drew this at the office when I was working at day job. And when I drew it, someone walked over and said, "Oh, look, it's a nice little turtle." Yeah, they thought that right there. They thought that was a turtle. That's a body floating into a mouth. But people at the office thought it was a turtle. So I would draw this over and over on other pieces of paper, and people would just assume that it was a turtle. I guess it looks like a turtle, but it's really supposed to be a body floating into that mouth. Um, this was another quick pencil sketch that I did. And I've done this drawing multiple times before, and I've refined it a lot more too. If I find more of my drawings from this time era working at this particular job, I'll post them on Instagram, or I'll post them on, I'll make a post, I'll make another video. But I'm trying to track those down. Like I said, there's a lot of my drawings I don't have because I just give them away. And if I'm lucky enough to take a picture of it, that's the only thing I really have of them. So if I find those photos, if I find the originals, I'll make another video and show you guys more of those work. So that's really all the drawings I wanted to show you guys from when I really started in high school to what I'm drawing now. And you guys have seen what I'm drawing now, right? Like stuff like that and stuff like that, right? And I never could get to that level if I didn't start where I started at, okay? And if I didn't have that, that drive and that curiosity of making my work better. Just because people don't like your work today doesn't mean they won't like it tomorrow. In this industry, you have to be like water. You just got to be okay with being told no, or that your work's not acceptable, or it's not good enough, because there's so many people out there that your work's going to hit on some level to some people. There's just too many people out there to say no to, for you. I just want to say stay consistent, stay on top of your drawings, and don't stop drawing. If you want to get better, just keep drawing. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, you could see my time lapse. So if you look at all my artwork from the beginning to now, and you can in this video, if you rewind it back to the beginning of how I started drawing, look at that. Like I drew that back then. I'm embarrassed to show that off, but I know that there are people who are at that level don't know if they can actually do it. You can. If I could draw like that, and then I can go to draw like that, then you could do it too. All right. Just don't let your work discourage yourself because you'll always be better at it. All right. That's really all I got to tell you guys. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope this was content that could be useful for someone in the future. Um, Let me know if you have any questions about any of the drawings you saw. If you want me to redraw anything, throw in the comments below. I'd be curious to hear your feedback on this video. And before I forget, go ahead and please like, subscribe, hit that bell for notification. And if you're not already, you guys should be following me on Instagram at NoahForArt. And until next time, I'll see y'all.